Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Property Finance Podcast. And today I want to talk about the one question that every single private lender always asks first. And this is whether you're going to a bridging lender, development lender, private investor, whatever it may be. This is the first question that they're always going to ask you. And it's not, what's my return on investment? It's, how are you protecting my money? So let's say you come to me and you say, Michael, I want to borrow 50 grand from you. I turn around and say, as many people would expect me to, how are you protecting my money? Because that's all I care about. I don't care about, to a degree, what my return is. I don't care what I'm getting out of it. I want to know that, end of the day, my money is protected. So I want to just briefly talk through some of the ways that that money can be secured, and also just give a few of you a bit of an education around kind of how that money can be secured. Because I think all too often I speak to people who are creating investor packs, they're creating all of these documents to go and speak to private investors, and it's all focused around return on investment and that kind of thing, and how much money the investor is going to make. And while that's great, and obviously they do want to understand that towards the back end, but it never really focuses on how that money is going to be secured and what's the plan B, C, D, E to get that money out. Because when push comes to shove, and let's say the deal completely collapses, and let's say that you completely fail on the project that you're looking to do, that investor isn't going to be sitting there worrying about their interest. They're not going to be sitting there saying, you owe me 10 grand's worth of interest, I want that 10 grand back. They're going to be coming after you for the principal, and they're going to be coming after you for that lump that they've put in to begin with. Because many investors, and this isn't an endorsement to go and screw over investors, but many investors only really care about getting their initial principal back. As long as that's safe and secure, they're normally pretty okay. Obviously, they want to make the interest, don't get me wrong. And this is what I'm saying about this not being an endorsement to screw over investors, because they are inevitably going to want to make that return still, but they're interested in that security. So there's sort of 3 or 4 different ways it's secured. So first charge is kind of the golden goose of security. That means that they're first in the queue on that particular project, and it means that they get their money out before anybody else. So if there's a sale, if there's a refinance, anything like that, that money goes to that first charge holder first before you get any money out at all. So they have all of the rights. They can stop you from refinancing, they can stop you from selling, they can stop you from doing anything until they've got their money back. So that's kind of the golden goose of security. Now, many of us, we're using bridging finance, we're using development finance, we're using maybe other mortgages, other investors. Giving a first charge isn't always going to be possible. So shortly behind that is second charge, which essentially is exactly what it says on the tin, which is that they are the second to get their money out of that deal. The biggest thing you're going to find from private investors is their solicitor is going to come back and say, well, we don't really have that much security because the second charge isn't worth as much as the first charge holder. And if there's deeds of subordination between the first charge holder and second charge holder, obviously they're also going to have issues around that, and sort of saying, well, actually the first charge holder holds literally all of the power, leaves us just holding this second charge, which isn't really worth much. The other bit is that if the first charge holder takes possession, they could, if they wanted to, sell the property for just what they are owed, and then the second charge holder wouldn't get any money out. So if you're offering an investor a second charge, expect that you're going to get some resistance, I would say. Outside of that, you've then also got personal guarantees. So this is where you say to the investor, look, I will sign on the dotted line personally, so that if the limited company cannot fulfill its debt or its obligations for the debt, you can then come after me personally. That's my personal house, buy-to-lets, cars, ISAs, all of that stuff can all be sort of chased down. The last one is a debenture. So that is essentially a fixed and floating charge over all assets within a limited company. And what will happen is you will give them a debenture which will sit over that limited company, and it may be that you have other assets in there as well, and they will then have security over everything within that limited company. Wouldn't recommend it if there are other projects in there, because if something goes wrong, you kind of want to ring fence them away and make sure they're protected. But it's there as an option should you wish to choose. You could, if you wanted to, also look at security over shares. You could also give the investor a shareholding as well. I would say limit that shareholding to sort of 19% or less. The reason being is because if it's any more than 19%, so sort of 20% plus, then they may have to be named on the loan. And obviously, an investor isn't going to want to be named on the loan if you're going for bridging finance, development finance, etc. They're not going to be massively keen on that. So it's probably worth keeping them sort of 19% or less. But realistically, that's kind of the 4, maybe 5 ways that you could protect investor money. But I would say, as a rule of thumb, moving forward, make sure that whenever you're putting together your investor packs, obviously just make sure you put in there what the security for the loan is. It'd be a massive benefit to investors when they kind of read it is actually, what is your plan B? What's your plan C? What's your plan D? How are you going to get out of it? So if the project goes wrong, can you refinance? If I, as the investor, let's say I've invested in you, what happens if I decide 6 months in that I want my money back? Is there any way that I can have my money back? If not, that's fine. Just tell me. I just want to know if I've got to leave my money in for 12 months or 18 months, whatever the term is, or if there's a way of getting out early. And then you could even go into more detail and talk about penalties for early withdrawal. So if I come to you and say I want my money out after 6 months, am I getting 6 months worth of interest, or am I being penalised for taking it out early? And you can put those things together. But I think the pack just needs to be that little bit more detailed, just to have all of that stuff about the security in there. And it's about transparency, openness, creating those relationships early on with the investor to show that what you care about isn't making them huge bucket loads of money, because that's important. But more importantly, it's about securing and prioritizing their money to make sure that they feel like they're looked after, like they're in a safe pair of hands. I think that's probably some really good tips there, hopefully, that you can implement into your investor packs moving forward. But if anyone would like any help with investor packs, please do reach out, drop me a message. I'm always happy to kind of help with little template packs and that kind of thing. But otherwise, thank you very much for listening. I'll catch you on the next one.